The United Nations General Assembly's first committee has adopted an Iranian-drafted resolution calling on nuclear armed states to dismantle their entire nuclear arsenals. The resolution calls for an end to the production of nuclear weapons and requires nuclear armed states not to transfer such weapons to other countries. It also calls on the Israeli regime to join the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty and allow UN inspectors, to access its facilities. Adopted text says that non-nuclear states would be given assurances that they would not be attacked or threatened with nuclear weapons. The U.S. and Israeli regime were among countries that voted against this document. Joining us now from Los Angeles, Ramiro Fuentes, a journalist and political commentator that is pardoned. Hello, Ramiro. Always a pleasure to have you on Press TV, bud. Hope you're safe and doing well. Your thoughts on this drafted resolution against nuclear proliferation and how it's really about high time, isn't it, Ramiro, that everybody plays by the same rules?
Indeed, I think it's important for all nations in the world to be treated equally and to also recognize who is starting the wars, who owns the weapons, who is the creator of chaos and destruction in the region. As far as I'm concerned, it's not Iran. Iran has only been on the defensive, has defended itself against neighboring countries or forces that have sought to impose terror and to seek destruction. Meanwhile, Israel, a nuclear state that has gotten almost no attention, no criticism for its nuclear program, has started war after war after war, using the United States, using the IDF as well, to not only kill and destroy people and lands on its occupied territory, on the Palestinian people, but also to engage in wars against the Lebanese people, the Syrian people, the Iraqi people, the Iranian people. And so I think this levels the playing field in a way that really shows the true nature of these two nations, because a lot of time people like to put two nations together. They like to say that Israel is on par with Iran, that the US is on par with China. But as far as I'm concerned, Israel, the US, the UK, the Western imperialist powers have caused all the wars. And so we have to put a check on their nuclear capabilities.
And what's wild here, Ramiro, is even the U.S. with the biggest arsenal on the planet, Russia, China with a very small nuclear arsenal, but they're all pretty much transparent when it comes to at least exposing, even if they continue to proliferate, they actually are pretty much transparent with how many they have, how many are basically active, how many are shelved. But the Israeli regime has an extremely clandestine operation. Why not at least, and when you expect so much out of Iran with respect to inspection, oversight, adherence, why not implore the Israeli regime to show transparency with respect to its nuclear weapon stockpile?
There's a complete double standard when it comes to Israel. Israel claims to be the victim. Israel claims to be the weaker underdog. And that's part of the Zionist narrative that they have. They view themselves as the underdog, as people who are oppressed. And there's actually a really disgusting concept in Israeli foreign policy called the Samson option, which is this idea that if other powers attack Israel, that Israel has the power and the capability to bomb the whole world and bring the whole world down with it. So there's some really vicious ideology in Israeli foreign policy. And unfortunately, the Israeli lobby, AIPAC, and all these Zionist organizations in Washington, D.C., they run the U.S. empire. They decide who gets criticized and who doesn't. And that's why we haven't seen any criticism of Israel the way we have of Iran.
Stay safe, Ramiro. Always a pleasure to check in with you and pick your brain there, bud. From Los Angeles, California, Ramiro Fuentes, journalist and political commentator there.